Good evening. I'm Diana Colavecchio, the Community Development Director for the City of Cuyahoga Falls. I want to welcome you all to this public meeting. This is a presentation about the construction of the Ward 5 neighborhood trail that has been talked about ever since I was a member of City Council back in 2006. This meeting was advertised on the city's website and Facebook page and the neighborhood website. Also, all of the presidents of the homeowners associations in the surrounding area were contacted and notified and asked to notify their residents as well that this meeting was happening tonight. While myself and others are attending this meeting via Zoom, you at home were encouraged to listen to this meeting on your radio at station 96.1 FM. So if you are listening, I thank you for doing so and invite you to submit comments. We will accept comments for the next 2 weeks. They may be emailed to publiccomment@cityofcf.com or call us at 330-971-8138. That information is on our website, and I'll repeat it again at the end of tonight's presentation. We're going to begin in a moment with introductions with who is in our meeting on Zoom. But first, I'm going to hand this off to our mayor, who would like to say a few words. So our mayor, Don Walters of the great city of Cuyahoga Falls.
Thank you, Diana. And thanks everyone that's here on the meeting and those that are listening in. Yes, it has been a long time. I was on city council as well, 2006, when this all started being discussed. And you probably wonder, well, why now? What's happening now? Well, the grant was for a specific purpose, which is this recreational leisure trail. We're reaching the point where if we don't get moving on this, we may lose the opportunity, and we certainly don't want that to happen. So although it's been discussed throughout the years, it's changed, it's morphed a little bit, we feel we have a wonderful design now, and we're ready to move forward. If you have not been back in that area, the Brook area is absolutely beautiful. It's pristine. It's nature right in the middle of the city, and it's basically the overflow from Cuyahoga Lake, meanders down through and makes its way to the Cuyahoga River, to Lake Erie, St. Lawrence Seaway, the Atlantic Ocean. So absolutely beautiful to see that. However, it's not very visible. It's hard to get to, it's hard to access. We're gonna make it easy, and we're gonna make it beautiful where people can enjoy it. And I'll also throw in that these are one of the things, and I know we have a real estate professional on the call tonight, that this is an amenity. This is something that will enhance your property value, quality of life. If you ever do go to sell your home, your condo, what have you, I'm sure it will be listed in your description that there's a walking trail very nearby. So this is a positive. We're excited to get moving on it, and thank you for everyone's involvement.
Thank you, Mayor. Now I'm going to introduce the rest of the folks who are here with us participating in our Zoom meeting, and I'll begin with those who work with the city and for the city. When I say your name, please just give a little quick friendly hello so the listening audience knows you're with us. Fred Guerra, our planning director.
Hi.
Sarah Klein, superintendent of Parks and Recreation.
Hi, everybody.
Also with Parks and Recreation, we have Matt Shad. Matt, you're muted, but we saw you wave. And Brian Amon.
Hello.
Thank you both. We also have with us Brian Hoffman, our finance director.
Hello.
Anthony Zumbo, our service director.
Hello.
Tony DeMasi, our city engineer. Tony is also muted, so he gave us a nice wave. And we have with us two council representatives tonight. First, Russ Balthus, our council at large representative.
Hello.
And the Ward 5 council representative, Mike Brillhart. Mike gave us a wave also. Now let's introduce our experts in all things parks and trails. We have with us tonight Catherine Holman, director from Environmental Design Group.
Hello.
And Ryan Bentley, project manager, also with Environmental Design Group.
Hello.
We have Dan Rice, the president of the Ohio and Erie Canalway Coalition And Dan is also a member of our Planning and Zoning Commission.
Good evening, everyone.
We have Andrea Ireland, Outdoor Recreation Planner for Cuyahoga Valley National Parks.
Hello, everyone.
And we have Gary DeReamer, a real estate agent with Carriage Realty.
Hello, everyone.
And we may be joined this evening at some point by Lisa King, the Executive Director from Summit Metro Parks, as well as Nick Moscas, also with Summit Metro Parks. If they join us, we'll let you know. So now I'm going to turn this presentation over to Fred Guerra, and he's going to discuss the historical background and overview of this project and how it came to be. Fred?
Okay, thank you, Diana. I prepared a little bit of a flow chart tonight just to show you how we got here. Somewhat of a long road, but and really this actual project really began in 2014, but before 2014 there was a lot of different things that led to the creation of this trail. And as stated earlier by Diana, we had a trail designed in the early 2000s, 2005, 2006, that didn't go forward. But I wanted to mention a couple key things before we get to today's project, is that, what really got this area started in development and other activities was in the 1970s when Summit County constructed the Brook Interceptor sanitary sewer line. And this sewer line actually runs through the Greenway. And so what that allowed to happen was it allowed development to occur on either side of Brook. And development such as on Graham Road, the Kroger, which is now Menards, Giant Eagle and Menards. Also, all the condominiums on either side, the subdivisions. It also led to some of the development on Mark Drive. So this sewer line helped spur growth in this part of the city. In fact, a lot of this started when it was still in Northampton Township. And the city in the 80s actually annexed a large swath of land from Graham Road all the way to Mark Drive, from Wyoga Lake Road to State Road. So that was even before the merger. So, but one of the things that even Northampton mentioned in the Planning Commission in Cuyahoga Falls was that this area is flood prone. And so, because when we talked about this, it's at the bottom of the of Brook, and all the water from Brook and other development also shows up, also comes into this area. So, so after development occurred, the city in the 1990s decided, well, everybody wanted to protect this area. So when development occurred, we started purchasing land on either side of Brook. We either purchased it or we received easements from developers, and that was for both flood protection and also for passive recreation. So in the 90s and 2000s, the city purchased and had this land available for eventually doing what we're trying to do here today. Our first shot at this was after the land was available, was the ODNR grant in the mid 2000s, trail grant, in which that layout of where that trail is very similar to where it is today in this layout. But because of the economy in 2008, 2009, the city didn't go forward with the trail. And one of the reasons is that we had the grant, but because of the problems with the economy, we didn't want to use our match. So, so when we started rethinking this in 2014, we wanted to have a stream of income that could be the city's match. and we'll get into that. So, so along comes 2014, and the city is trying to get Menards to develop on the old Giant Eagle site. And so part of the thing was Menards needed more land. That was the Giant Eagle owned. And so we worked with the Hunter family who owned the land behind Giant Eagle and owned Mill Pond, and worked with Menards. And part of the deal was we worked with Menards, the Hunter family, to sell another 10 acres to Menards so they can build their store. And in return, we ended up with Mill Pond. But in the long run, we knew it was a good thing. We just didn't, we didn't buy it because we loved the pond, even though we had plans to use the pond. Things just worked out that it gave us the opportunity to buy the pond. So in 2014 and to 2015, we ended up owning Mill Pond. And we also did get a grant from ODNR to help purchase Mill Pond. So when we were doing this, we approached the Canalway organization for a strategic initiative grant, because we knew that now we own the pond, we own the greenway, we need to come up with a master plan. So we ended up doing a master plan with the Canalway funds and also local funds. Once we finished that, we moved on and we saw the opportunity to purchase the Bath Road barn that was there. It was vacant, it was for sale, and we wanted to protect it, and we didn't want it to be torn down. And so we ended up getting another grant from ODNR to purchase the barn. And the barn is around 2015, 2016, and the barn will eventually serve as a trailhead. So as we're starting to assemble property, we have a master plan. If you recall, I said last time we let this grant, ODNR grant, pass us by because we didn't want to use city funds to match it. And so we decided that we knew with the development occurring around here, there was two developments, the Brookside residents that we were working with. In fact, they even donated land to us for the open space area and the greenway, and also the enclave at Mill Pond. So we thought that if these two developments were going to occur, we should try to have them help construct the trail and do stormwater management in the greenway, in addition to doing some stabilization of the riverbed. And so we then, as a city, created a tax increment financing district that included the greenway, included Mill Pond, and included both the Brookside residents and also the enclave. And so the way this works is that the Brookside residents is about a $9 to $10 million project, and the enclave is about a $12 to $15 million. And so what the TIF does, we're able to use a portion of their property taxes for a 10-year period to help pay for improvements in the greenway. That is streamway improvements, flooding improvements to help do some retention and other flood management, and also to do some recreational things. So what happens is these taxes, their taxes of this new development, are paying match, particularly on this grant. So we're not using any other general fund monies from the city. We're using ODNR, and we're using property tax income from two new developments that will directly benefit from this trail that we wouldn't have had without the development. So this is truly a public-private partnership as we look at this, because they're going to be generating probably $1.5 to $2 million in revenue for us to use as match to do the things we want to do in the greenway. Catherine, you can go one more. Okay. So that's that's how we structured this. So in 2016, we actually applied for a trail grant. And because we had a good track record with ODNR, they already gave us 3 grants already for the Mudbrook Greenway. I think this was a good project. They wanted to see it happen. And so we were able to get over $600,000 to do this trail. And so that's what we're talking about tonight, the construction of this trail. I also, during this whole process, is we have a brownfield site, the old gun club at Pleasant Meadow. And we applied 3 times to help clean up through the US EPA brownfield cleanup program. And yeah, today I got an email from US EPA, and we did not get the grant for a 3rd time. And there was only 1 cleanup grant in the state of Ohio this round, and it was an old industrial site. So, so we're going to keep trying for this. I understand that there will be additional money. I'm hearing that EPA is going to get more money through this most recent stimulus package, and so maybe there'll be some additional money available that we can apply for. So the goal is to clean up this site also, because it is on the trail. So that's the history of Mudbrook Trail, and I can answer any questions later. Thanks.
Thanks, Fred. That's a lot of history, over 50 years worth of history.
Yeah.
Now we're going to hear from Catherine Holmuck to talk about the master plan overview of the Trail Phase 1 project summary and any changes. And before I turn it over to you, Catherine, I just want to make mention that Nick Moskus has joined us in our Zoom video from Summit Metro Parks. Thank you, Nick, and say hello to everybody and let them know you're here.
Hello, everyone.
Thanks. Okay, Catherine, show is yours.
Thank you. Just to reiterate what Fred did mention is that there is a Clean Ohio Grant Trail Fund. It can only be used for trails. We do have to use the grant dollars, or we do have to give it back to the state. And then there's tax increment financing for the matching funds. And this picture here actually is from the Brookside residents, where this is not counted even in those dollars, but they actually did put in the trailhead parking as part of their development, and at no cost to the city. So I want to talk about the Mill Pond Mudbrook Greenway and the corridor master plan and its goals, and go through those goals and talk about how they relate to this Phase 1 portion of the Mudbrook Trail. So the corridor goals that we talked about and developed the master plan for were natural resource preservation, flood mitigation, and passive recreation opportunities. Those were the 3 goals that were developed through the planning process and through multiple steering committee meetings, as well as public meetings with the city and residents. So one of the reasons why we want to protect the natural resource preservation, as Fred mentioned, the Mill Pond was purchased by the city, and you can see on the left-hand side, that is an aerial image from 1975 of the Mill Pond. And then on the right-hand side is the Mill Pond from aerial image from 2015. One of the things that I want to make mention of these 2 pictures side by side is on the right side, you can see the large amount of how the open water looks green. That's from algae blooms. And one of the things that we've realized most recently in the last few years about algae and water from our Lake Erie watershed and our Lake Erie issues is that it's a bad thing for water quality and natural resource preservation to have massive algae blooms in our ponds and lakes, because they do degrade the natural resources and they harm the fish. And that's caused a lot by erosion, sediment transport, and the nutrients caused by those sediment transports coming in. And Mill Pond has a lot of sediment coming in to it from its surrounding watershed. The other thing that Fred mentioned, and I want to make mention here, is that the Old Gun Club does have some environmental considerations. So the map on the left is a map from the investigation of the environmental contaminants that are a part of the Old Gun Club. So the Old Gun Club had lead shots that people shot on site. Lead is not good for the environment, for the animals to eat, nor the invertebrates in the stream to get a hold of. So that's one of the things that the city has been trying to clean up, to restore and protect in this corridor. The green areas of investigation aren't shown to have any lead contamination. The yellow are to a 2-foot depth, and then the red areas are for a 4-foot depth. So that the area that we're talking about today, which is phase 1, does come through this area and remediates the southern portion, so south of Mud Brook, as part of this project. Another thing that we investigated during the master plan is that there is severe erosion and channel instability in Mud Brook. You can see from the picture on the right, the main channel, as well as the tributaries going into this area, have a lot of undercutting. And as Fred mentioned, that there's been a lot of development when it was a township, and then also as it's become a city, and not just from Cuyahoga Falls, but also from the entire watershed. So let me talk about flood protection in this next slide. The watershed for Mill Pond is actually pretty large. It's 25 square miles, of which a majority is not in Cuyahoga Falls. We have Hudson, Stowe, and other municipalities, Silver Lake, draining into the Cuyahoga Falls portion of it. And on the right-hand side of the slide, you see the watershed. The areas in red are outside of Cuyahoga Falls. The areas in yellow are actually the drainage area in Cuyahoga Falls, which is only 19% of the total watershed. And then the corridor area that we actually looked at is only 2.8% of the entire watershed, and that is shown in green. So how has the flooding changed over the time span from 1978 to 2009? And that's shown on the left here. The purple is actually the floodplain from 1978, and then the blue area, which you can see has increased, in some areas dramatically increased in size and space, is shown in the blue. One of the things I do want to make mention is that when you overlay those two, in the city of Cuyahoga Falls, the floodway from 1978 and 2009 are still restrained into a narrow corridor. So what that does is that the water that comes into there, if you think of it as a funnel, that funnel starts, as you put water into a funnel and it goes down through the funnel, that water tends to, as it goes through the smaller orifice of the funnel, it speeds up. And when it speeds up, it causes erosion. It straightens streams. You can see that on the right. Straight streams lack curvature. They do increase the velocity of the storm water that enters through there from rain, and it tends to wash out the fish and invertebrates that are found in natural, healthy, meandering streams. The other thing, as part of the master plan, we talked about passive recreation opportunities, so local trails with natural connections. And phase 1 includes those things. And so connection to residents, as I mentioned before, there is a new 5-car parking lot at the trailhead of Pleasant Meadow Boulevard as part of the development there. As part of this phase 1 project, we're also proposing 7 parking spaces at the southern apex of the Bath Road Hunter Barn property. And then also improving existing access to the corridor with safety enhancements. We're connecting to the historic barn. So as Fred mentioned, the historic barn was purchased from an ODNR grant that the city received. And so incorporating that history and preserving that history was an important thing that we heard from the public when looking and studying this corridor about what we wanted to celebrate. We also, in the 1 mile trail that we have for phase 1, which goes from Pleasant Meadow all the way down to Bath Road right now, that it has a lot of scenic views from Boardwalk. It also is ABA and ADA compatible trail, 8 foot wide. It does consist of boardwalk, which you see an example picture on your left, as well as chip and seal, which looks like asphalt. And that's a picture on your right of an example trail. We are trying to make that as compatible as possible so that most of the users who use the trail can use this trail for the coffee and the talking and the being able to visit nature without heavy, strenuous, larger slopes as part of this trail. We are also trying to avoid many of the larger trees. We know this is forested area, some of it that we're traveling through. Some of it is also wetlands. So trying to, as part of this trail, we're actually restoring a lot of natural stream bank, as well as trying to restore some of the natural functionality of the stream channel itself. We are putting in a small wetland here by the new development there. The trail is shown on the map in red, and the other thing is to maximize grant funding as part of the plan. With that, I will send this over to Tony DeMasi to talk about the construction schedule and bidding schedule.
Thank you, Catherine. Appreciate that. Currently, we are scheduled to go out to bidding for the project in the summer of 2020. So here in just a few more months, a couple more months, we should be bidding. Assuming everything goes as planned, we should be able to award a contract for the construction also in the summer of this year. So with that, we'll sit down with the contractor, work out a schedule. We anticipate construction beginning sometime this fall. It's a relatively straightforward project, although there are, as you mentioned, Catherine, the boardwalks and things of that nature that need to have some middles and taking a look at. So with that, we anticipate the work to take a few months, maybe 9-10 months, maybe a little bit longer. So we're looking the summer of next year, summer of 2021, to be complete, and then a grand opening, a trail opening, if you will, the summer or fall of 21. We don't know at this time, if where we're going to start the project, if we're going to start at Bath Road and move up, or at Wyoga and come down, or it might be a combination of the two, but that's currently our schedule at this time.
Very good. Thank you both for those presentations. And for anybody who's just joining us in the listening audience on the radio, we are discussing the proposed trail for neighborhood Ward 5, and we will be giving this slide projected show that Catherine Holmick was gracious enough to provide. We will be giving that to our NECO department and having this posted on the website. I understand we're talking a lot about slides and whatnot as we have this presentation, and you'll get to see that. And another reminder that if you have comments, those can be submitted to publiccomment@cityofcf.com or call 330-971-8138. And I'll announce that again at the end. At this time, I'm going to turn this over to Sarah Klein, our Park and Rec Superintendent, and she's going to conduct a little bit of Q&A with our resident experts.
Thank you, Diana. We had the opportunity before this meeting for people to submit comments, and we did have a few questions and comments emailed into the city and also posed to this group by social media. So I'd like to read those and then ask for comments on a few of them as there are more questions. So the first one is really a comment. It reads, "My name is Beth Serwinski, and I am a natatorium staff member and fitness instructor. I am in full support of the Mudbrook Trail, as this allows people in our community to have a safe place to walk and gain the benefits of outdoor exercising, such as strengthening muscles and bones, improving balance and coordination, maintaining a healthy weight, improving one's mood, and getting fresh air and vitamin D. So that was a nice letter of support. This one reads, Dear City of Cuyahoga Falls, I question the cost of this improvement at the current time. Could the funds required for this construction be better used to pay for recovery from the coronavirus? This is, after all, not essential. Thanks, Dave Taylor. Since Mr. Taylor does have a question and it's financial in nature, Brian Hoffman, would you like to start off by addressing Mr. Taylor's question?
Thank you, Sarah. I'd be happy to try to address that question. The current funding sources for this trail, there's two of them. One is a grant from the state of Ohio that's been approved for a couple of years now, and then we've just been waiting to spend those dollars. Those dollars must be spent on this trail and no other project in the city. And so it makes a lot of sense for us to move forward with a project like this, to spend dollars that we were awarded from the city and can be spent in our community. The second funding source for this trail is from the TIF dollars that Fred talked about earlier in this program. Those TIF dollars are generated from properties within this project area and can only be used within this project area. And so the dollars that are generated and used for this project can only be spent within this project area and can't be spent in other ways, or can be saved, but really is going to be used in this area at some point. So it makes a lot of sense to do it today and do it now.
Great, thanks, Brian. Fred, since you talked a little bit about the TIF earlier, was there anything that you would like to expand on that Brian mentioned about the TIF?
No, really, I think Brian did a good job of reviewing it. The only thing is we did have to create a plan for this TIF. And so it mentions how we can spend the money. And that money is for stormwater, passive recreation, other infrastructure within that TIF area. So.
Great, thanks, Fred. And then lastly, Dan Rice, I think that you perhaps had some comments that could address Mr. Taylor's question as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Sure, thank you, Sarah. And I actually appreciate Mr. Taylor's question. That's, to be perfectly honest, that's a question we get a lot, actually, because people ask, you know, especially during times like now, but also at other times, you know, is this a really good use of these funds? And as Brian very clearly outlined here, there are dedicated funds that are just dedicated for the development of trails, parks, and open spaces. And I can certainly understand Mr. Taylor's perspective that at a time like this where we have, you know, great community needs throughout the community, sometimes, you know, people say, why don't we use that money to pave our roads or fill our potholes? Well, it's because these funds can't be used for that. And I'm a big believer as a trail advocate, and quite frankly, as a resident of the city of Cuyahoga Falls, that if there are trail dollars that are out there, I would rather them come to the city of Cuyahoga Falls rather than go to Columbus, Ohio, or Cincinnati, or Findlay, or you pick the country, the city across this country. I would rather those investments be made in our community, because I think the residents of Cuyahoga Falls deserve great, outstanding parks, trails, and open spaces, just like everybody else in this country. So, and I would also suggest, Sarah, now more than ever, people are using our parks, trails, and open spaces. I know we have Nick Moskis with some Metro Parks on the line here, and Sarah, you can certainly attest to this. You know, people are really using our trails and parks so much more today. And so I think now more than ever, parks, trails, and open spaces are really viewed as essential services rather than non-essential services. So I applaud the mayor, I applaud the administration. I would actually strongly make the case where now is the time to make this happen.
Great, thanks, Dan, and I concur with all those comments. Thank you for making them so well. We did have a last email, and it reads, hello, very nice to see the announcement of the meeting to discuss development of the Mudbrook Trail. It has been a long time coming, and there's a smiley face after that. I enjoy the many trails and parks in our part of the world and have lived in the Northampton, Cuyahoga Falls area for over 50 years. It's a great place to be. One of the things I used to have hope for would be an extension of that trail to pass under the bridge at State Road. And as I understand it, that bridge, which was actually built to accommodate a trail on the north side of Mud Brook to pass under the bridge. For sure, getting from Bath Road to the bridge would not be an easy undertaking, and it may never come to pass. But when our kids were young in the late 1970s, we used to hike along Mud Brook most of the way from Northampton Road to almost State Road. What a beautiful and interesting area, and I had always hoped that a trail might be developed along that area. The ravine and cliffs are quite special along that way and very scenic. If there remains any possibility of such an extension, I think it would be very worthwhile in the city presentation to at least mention it when discussing any long-range plans for our area. Thank you, Eilert Ofsted, and I'm sorry, Ms. Ofsted, if I pronounce your name incorrectly, from Cuyahoga Falls. Dan, since we just ended with you, I'm going to start with you, and then Catherine, I think we'll go to you after Dan regards to any possible extension.
Yeah, this is a really great regional connector trail. And I think the city of Cuyahoga Falls is starting in the perfect location where there is already funding and capacity and momentum to develop this trail connection. But the ultimate goal of the Mud Brook Trail is to connect both east and west, to connect to Stowe, and also to connect down to the Ohio and Erie Canal Towpath Trail. So I could not agree more with the comment that this is an opportunity. But I think as has been commented by the mayor, this project has been a long time in coming, and I think we kind of take these projects in phases, and this is a very appropriate first phase, and we look to build on the momentum of this first phase and look to actually develop those other phases and connections. So a great comment.
Thanks, Dan. Catherine, was there anything you'd like to add on that?
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you, Dan. Yes, there are future phases, as Fred mentioned, to develop the TIF funding and financing of the master plan was developed, which identified this is the first phase, but then there are multiple phases that would come off of this and connect up to the Ohio and Erie Canal. And we did have some, Dan did have some lessons learned. I don't know if we wanted to include those now or at this question. Sarah?
Sure.
Yeah, I guess I just would to build upon what I said previously. First of all, thank you so much for the invitation to join you all this evening. I mean, this is a very important community conversation. I appreciate the mayor's comments regarding the length of time, but to put it into perspective, I've been working on the Ohio and Erie Canal Towpath Trail for 27 years, and you know, the Ohio and Erie Canal Towpath Trails go back to the 1960s. So there's actually been a lot of progress made in the past, 5 to 10 years on this project. So nobody should feel embarrassed at all. I mean, you're quite frankly on a really good timeline. I'm also actually, quite frankly, not an expert. I may have some experience, but I certainly don't consider myself an expert. And we do have my colleagues here on the line as well. Andrea Ireland with the National Park Service, and Nick Moskis, and certainly Councilman Brillhart, Councilman Baltus, and Gary as well. So feel free to chime in here. But what we've learned with the Ohio and Erie Canal Towpath Trail that, as the mayor said, what we have seen is that generally property values increase the closer they are to trails. And that increase varies anywhere from 5 to 15%. And it's a logical reason. I mean, people want to get access to parks, trails, and open spaces. And so that is a really true direct benefit of regional connector trails. And like I said previously, the Mud Brook Trail is a real key component of the Summit County Trail Plan. This is a very visionary plan that has the endorsement of the city of Cuyahoga Falls and all the municipalities in Summit County, as well as the leadership and support of Summit County Council and Summit County government. And this is a visionary trail plan with the goal of connecting all of our communities in Summit County to within a 10-minute walk or bicycle ride of a regional connector trail. Because we recognize that this is good for our community. I believe, Sarah, you had a comment earlier about the importance of health and wellness. That is also another huge benefit that we've learned from the development of parks, trails, and open spaces. And then the other comment I wanted to add is that what we've learned is that corporations and businesses seek communities out that have these type of quality of life amenities. I can honestly tell you, whether it's PNC Bank, Huntington Bank, Goodyear, First Energy, these are companies and corporations who actually utilize our trail materials when they go to recruit doctors, engineers, and lawyers to come live in Northeast Ohio. And so those communities that are very forward-thinking, like the city of Cuyahoga Falls and under the leadership of our mayor. Those are the communities that are going to be sustainable and livable communities. And the last point there is that truly parks, trails, and open spaces really lead to healthier lifestyles. And then lastly, I just would like to, again, compliment the city. I've been working on trail projects for a lot of years. This is one of the most creative and innovative funding formulas that I have seen for trails. Again, that gets back to the question that was mentioned earlier. It's a very valid point, I might add. But I really applaud, Mayor Walters, Fred and his leadership, and Sarah, yourself as well, because you're leveraging outside dollars to benefit the city and the community. I don't oftentimes see that. Oftentimes there's a local match component. But again, you guys should be applauded for really coming with a very innovative funding formula for this. But we're happy to support this, and any way in which we can help to bring this regional trail project to fruition, please let us know.
Thanks, Dan. And I think those are great reminders about the countywide plan. So I'm wondering if Nick from Summit County Metro Parks, if you wanted to add anything, and then maybe after Nick, Andrea from the National Park Service, if you had anything to add.
I just want to echo a lot of the things that are being said. Thank you for inviting me, and I'm sorry for being late. We actually had a bid opening. I'm happy to say we're restoring the Valley View area, the former golf course. We had a bid opening today to restore a mile of the Cuyahoga River, and we had our bids came in 30% below engineers' estimate. So that's a good thing. We know that times are tough, and we're happy to be able to have dollars to put into the economy and keep people working. So we're really happy about that. And I'm really familiar with this corridor. I've walked it many times. It's beautiful. It is such an asset to the community. And these east-west connectors, most of the bike paths through the area go north and south. Anywhere there's an east-west connector, and Dan is always preaching this, it's a great benefit to the community. This is the first time I'm stating this publicly, but we're in, I won't even say negotiations. We're working with Metro RTA right now. We're finalizing the paperwork for the Akron Secondary Trail, which is the former abandoned rail line to the east of Route 8. That will be a Metro Parks property, and we'll begin developing that. And this is such a logical connection to that. So this east-west connector, we're hoping will eventually tie to that extended bike and hike trail to the east. So this is a fantastic opportunity, and the funding and the planning, it's just really exemplary.
Thanks, Nick. Andrea, would you like to make comments?
Sure. I think there couldn't be a better time for these types of improvements. I mean, we're seeing the popularity of the towpath trail, every trail in the metro parks having capacity issues because people really need and want these types of amenities in their community. They value places like Cuyahoga Valley National Park and the Summit Metro Parks. And this is yet another connection into those areas and creating better park amenities within your own community. You know, when they started the Summit County Trail and Greenway Plan, the towpath wasn't finished. It was a dotted line. And now 3 revisions of the plan later, that's a solid line, and everybody wants to connect in. And especially on the east side, this is one of the very few connections that is being made. And I think it's great. I really think the funding is very innovative. I do work all over Ohio and beyond, and this is something that I'm going to take to other communities to say, look at how creative this is and at accomplishing what they wanted to have done. And the fact that you don't have to have, it's a built-in match for ODNR funding, which is often very hard to come by. So congratulations, and I can't wait to see it done.
Thanks, Andrea. We did have a few comments submitted via social media before the meeting as well. So I'd just like to read those too and ask for comments. Via Nextdoor, Pam, who lives in the Dales neighborhood, said, I hope it's monitored and kept safe. Individuals don't need to be attacked in any fashion when they're out for a leisure walk. I'll start by saying, Pam, thanks for that concern. Safety is always at the forefront of everyone's mind. I would say in the Parks Department, we see that the more things get used, the less likely it is that bad things happen. And I think that with this trail, having it opened up and having more people in the neighborhood using it, it will actually help diminish the possibility of anyone experiencing negative events. We always strive in the city of Cuyahoga Falls to be a safe community in every fashion. It's a priority of the mayor, everyone on city council, and all the administration, and this trail will be no exception. But I'd like to get comments from other people who are maybe familiar with that phenomena and how it works with trails. Dan, we've gone to you a lot tonight, but we're going to come back to you for another comment because I know you have a lot of experience in this area too.
Sure, I'd be happy to. And it's a very valid question and very valid concern. I mean, trail safety is a #1 priority. And my immediate comment is that oftentimes, trails aren't perfect, just like city streets aren't perfect or sidewalks aren't perfect. But generally speaking, you're actually safer on a trail than you are in any urban area for the very reason that you articulated, Sarah, and that is because people are out there exercising. They just want to, clear their head after maybe a day at work, or they're just out there to enjoy the beauty of nature. And so people are out there in numbers, and people generally speaking who don't want to be, who are doing bad things, they don't want to get caught. And so trail users are very polite individuals, and they really take care of their space. So it's a very valid concern. And so I think that's really having more people out there is a definite point, as you said. And then fortunately, many of our park partners, and certainly Nick can speak to this, and Andrea as well, they have patrols, either employees who are out there either on bicycles or walking. I know Cuyahoga Valley National Park has a volunteer trailblazer patrol. And so these are volunteers. I would kind of refer to them as more ambassadors to educate people about trail etiquette and providing information about trails, but it's really just an extra set of eyes and ears. And so through both of those measures, by providing actual professional trail employees out there patrolling it, as well as volunteers, those are different layers to have awareness out there and education. And both of those tools are really effective that we have seen along trails.
Great, thanks, Dan. And Catherine, I know you work with lots of communities on these kinds of projects, and just from your experience all over Northeast Ohio, I'm curious if you can tell us what you've observed when these sorts of projects are done in regards to safety.
Thank you, Sarah. Yes, so one of the things that we institute as designers is crime prevention through design, or what's called CPTED. So we design in such a way that, as Dan mentioned, people don't want to get caught doing bad things, hence the reason why most bad things happen in dark places. And so we design the trail so that it can be seen from long corridors, so that there aren't, so that there isn't this opportunity for people to not get caught if they're doing something bad. And as Dan mentioned, the volunteers and the trail users themselves are ambassadors because they love the trails. I myself have worked directly for 3 metropolitan park districts in the state of Ohio, each having their own volunteer system. And I can't think of a better system in which to be ambassadors of the trail system than volunteers. They help keep it clean and safe, and they love trails. And you'll see that here as well.
Thanks, Catherine. And the last comment that we had submitted ahead of time was from Leslie, who just identifies that she lives in Cuyahoga Falls, Ward 4. And Leslie says, exciting stuff, exclamation mark. It will pass by my apartment building, 3 exclamation marks. So Leslie sounds very excited, and we share your excitement, Leslie. I'll just say that the Parks Department will be managing this trail once it's open and the construction is finished. We really look forward to that opportunity. You'll see lots of park maintenance and park and rec staff out on the trail, as well as in our other parks. So you'll see us once this is all taken care of, keeping an eye on this trail and keeping it in good shape, and we look forward to that. I'll turn it back over to Diana. Just a reminder, we read the comments and emails that we received ahead of time, but we'll still be monitoring for that. So if anyone has other comments they'd like to add, you can submit them to public comment cityofcf.com. We'll be happy to get back with you and answer any questions or address any comments that you might have. So from the Parks and Rec Department, the City of Cuyahoga Falls, thank you very much for including us on this.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you everyone for those wonderful, thoughtful answers. I do want to go around the room here and give those who haven't had a chance to say anything to weigh in from their vantage point and let us know what your thoughts are. Let's start with you, Gary. You're in the real estate industry. Do you have any thoughts or comments for us this evening?
Yes, Diane. Thanks, and thanks to everyone that worked on this. I'm a big, I kind of like the parks myself. My son is actually going to school. He's leaving this summer, well, in July, to go to Hocking College. He wants to be a park ranger, so this is right up his alley. So they're talking about safety and what have you. A lot of those trails have armed rangers down there that they're, for safety. So I think that's a great thing. Talking about the real estate side of it, yeah, this would be a great tool for a selling agent listing a property in the Dales or the Hunter Parkway. I mean, we're always looking for something. What sets your neighborhood apart from the other parts of the city? And oh my, you're gonna have a beautiful trail right in your backyard that you can use at any time. I mean, like the mayor said, that'll be one of the first things in the comments we put in. It's almost like a sunroom on the back, or put a new roof on, or any kind of value to your property. This is going to be huge. So I look forward to it. I hope to get to some listings over in that area if anyone's leaving. And I'm sure now not many people are going to want to move. It's going to make their neighborhood a lot better. And kudos to everyone that's worked on this. I know it's been forever, but I'm looking forward to getting out there and hitting the trail.
Thanks, Gary.
Yes.
How about the rest of you parks people? Brian, Matt, any comments on your end, or do you think it's been covered here?
I think it's pretty much all been covered. I think it's another exciting opportunity for our park system, and can't wait to get it started.
I've walked this trail many, many times. It's an absolutely gorgeous trail. I'm very excited for it to finally come to fruition, and congratulations to everybody involved. And it's going to be a good trail.
Great. How about any of our other experts? Ryan, did you want to make mention of anything else? Nick, any other final comments? You're good? Okay. Then I'm going to go to our council people here. Mike Brillhart, this is right in your ward. Any comments from you at this point?
I just want to say thank you. There's been a lot of work put into this, and it is just going to be so beautiful, and it's going to be such a great asset to our community. And just once again, thank you.
Very good. Okay, if anyone doesn't have further comments, I'm going to have the mayor give some closing remarks as well. But before I do that, Tony, is there, I guess as the construction starts, are you going to post that? I mean, how are we going to know what's happening, when it's happening? How are these neighbors going to know? How is that message going to get out?
Yeah, thank you, Diana, for asking that. Because, quite frankly, it's not often that we have a trail built right behind us, right, as a homeowner. So these are exciting times. And so during construction, whether it's the engineering or the Park and Rec Department that sort of monitors this project, we will keep the councilman, Mike Brillhart, involved in those updates. We'll provide him regular updates. And I think Mike does a really good job of regularly updating his constituents there in Ward 5. And so the updates we give to him, I'm sure he's going to pass along. And if anybody has any questions, certainly they can give the city a call during the project.
That sounds great. Okay, Mayor, do you want to say a few final things before I give the wrap up at the end here and give contact information?
Yeah, I would. Thank you again, Diana, and thanks everyone for participating. One thing that I've learned more than anything about any projects or anything going on in the city is to communicate. So that's the purpose of this. This is only the beginning. I'm sure there'll be articles in the paper. We'll have this on the website. So reach out to us if you have questions or comments, but the goal is to always communicate what's coming down the pike, and this is going to be a great amenity for that area. I know you've probably heard it for a long time, but it's actually going to happen. So let us know what you think. Thank you very much.
Okay, one last call for any other comments before we sign off here. Raise your hand if you want to make a comment. Russ, do you have something final to say here?
Sure. I just want to echo the mayor and Councilman Brillhart. This is such a great project. And back from when I served as law director, I know how much work went into this. And I just want to say thank you to all the staff that worked on it, and also to all the members of the community for their input and all the meetings that we've been having for years. I'm really excited about this, and I think it's going to be great for the whole area. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Well, at this time, I want to thank all of those of you who participated in our Zoom meeting. I can't tell you how much I certainly appreciated your involvement in this project up to this point and your continuing involvement. This is, as you all know, right in my backyard as well. I used to be the Ward 5 representative back in the day. I too have walked this trail. I didn't wear the right shoes, and Fred had to help me out along the way to get me up some of those steep slopes. So I'm looking forward to walking this trail at a better time when I can actually maneuver through those slopes. On behalf of the City of Cuyahoga Falls, thank you for listening. This slide and this video, along with the audio, will be posted on our website, and we will continue to accept comments for the final time. You can submit those via email at publiccomment@cityofcf.com, or you can call 330-971-8138. And with that, we wish you a good evening. Good night.